Life is the one task that we are thrust into without any instructions or preparation. When we take that first breath, other than our mom feeding us and caring for us, we have no instruction about where we are, what we're doing, how to use our mind, how the world works, how the universe works. Since our parents didn't have those instructions and their parents didn't have those instructions and so on, we have a lot of blind leading the blind. That's just how this world was made up. The blind leading the blind. Little children come up with all kinds of what therapists will call magical thinking. We don't like that phrase around here because magical thinking means something else to us. Children are filled with all kinds of convoluted laws that they come up with and usually stay silent about. And then as we grow up, we don't realize that those laws are still in place. They're still running us below the surface. Like in a computer where things are happening in background, there's a lot that's going on in background for us as well. And the background laws and rules that we have established for ourselves, some of those laws and rules even happened at a preverbal level. Children are very brilliant. All humans are, but a lot of times we believe that children are not as brilliant as they are because they don't yet have language and they don't yet have sophistication. That language and that sophistication in many ways removes them from their genius. A lot of the decisions that a child makes about themselves and the world happen before they even understand words. Think about the very first thing that happens when you enter this world. You go from this very comfortable, liquid environment where everything's taken care of for you. You don't have to eat. You don't have to go do anything. You don't have to fend for yourself. You don't need to survive. Nothing. It's just so blissful. And then all of a sudden, this wave of determination starts to come over you, and you start to move through this very small birth canal. And it's so small that in some cases, it deforms, at least temporarily, the baby's head as they go through it. We know how painful it is for the mother because the mother has language. The mother tells us how painful it is. The mothers these days also have the benefit of some wonderful modern medicine to help alleviate some of that pain. But we don't realize what kind of pain the child is going through. The child's going through pain too. And the child goes through all of this pain to go into a cold, air-based environment out of this warm, water-based environment where their first breath is taken with a great deal of anxiety and great deal of pain, a great deal of trauma. And even if the birth goes beautifully with no complications whatsoever, it's bright, it's loud, there's strange creatures around, there are instruments of medicine, the umbilical cord gets cut. And so, of course, the closest thing that they understand, this baby, is their mom, because that's where they've been. And so that's where they go to get some comfort. But that initial trauma of birth sets the tone for what is to come for the next 80 years or 90 years or whatever the lifespan of that person is. And very few people ever release that trauma. Very few people even acknowledge that pre-verbal trauma set the tone for their lives. And you can go back, if you have the interest, and find out what the situation was at your birth. What were the circumstances? What kind of a birth was it? And you can get an idea of the level of trauma that you went through. Now, there are ways that we can reduce some of the trauma for the baby, things like underwater birth. But regardless, birth is traumatic. My point in speaking of this is to understand where we get our point of view from. It's from the gate. It's from the beginning. And we think thoughts based on what we perceive the world to be. And our first perception of the world is rarely, isn't this nice? Isn't this beautiful? What a gift for me to come into this gorgeous world. That's not usually what a baby experiences, coming from the bliss of the womb into the dry air of this world. And since we know that thought is creative, most of you listening to this will have an understanding of the laws of mentalism. It's really not that big of a mystery why we have so many problems. We have so much unhealed trauma even before you get into all of the other traumas that are yet to come, because childhood is also very traumatic. Most children have a very traumatic time being children to begin with. Since we don't have any manual about what to do, we just make it up as kids. We just make it up in our minds. And then those thoughts get stuck in our deep mind, where we're not even aware that they are there. They're in the background, churning out results for us, churning out perceptions. There used to be a thing in the early 20th century, I think it started. It was very popular, especially during the New Thought movement and positive thinking and all that. Thoughts are things. Thoughts are things. They are thought forms, and they are creative, and they help to create experiences for ourselves. On a magical level, we take that to somewhat of an extreme, that thought forms can not only create perceptions, but can change physical reality. But we can flip that on its head, and we can say that things are thoughts. You can look into your world and look at the thoughts around you, because those thoughts are crystallized as things. You can look into your life and you can ask, what are the perceptions that I have? What are my reactions to these things? What kinds of things are around me? What kinds of people? What kinds of objects? What kinds of work? What kinds of body? What kinds of health? Those are all based on thought. And those thoughts very frequently are not something that you just came up with in your conscious mind, but they are based on habitual thoughts that were in the conscious mind at one point, but then became entities unto themselves, churning out perception, churning out experiences. So the universal human struggle begins preverbally. Until we can undo and reorient those preverbal thoughts and make new decisions about ourselves and the world, we are going to maintain that universal struggle. Because change is temporary at best if you don't unseat the thought forms which are responsible for that reality that you want to change. You can look out on the world and ask, why are some lives filled with abundance and other lives are filled with hardship? Even in one family, why is this sibling always confronted with job issues and personality issues, whereas this sibling isn't? It can't just be because of how they were raised, if they were both raised in the same family, albeit sometimes parents have favorites and all of that. But it's because of the thoughts that were impregnated into the deep mind of those individuals. And like I said, a lot of those thought forms are preverbal and hidden from the conscious mind. You know, when you put some cologne on, you smell it for a few minutes, and then your nose gets used to it. Everybody else can smell it, but you're not aware of it anymore. The same thing goes with our thought forms. We're aware of them while we're thinking of them in our conscious mind, but by the time our deep mind gets a hold of them, we don't know what we're thinking anymore. We're not aware of it, not unless somebody takes us into a deep state of hypnosis, or we have some other kind of regressive therapy where we can find that point in time in which we consciously placed that thought into our deep mind. But the good news about all of that is that you don't need to go through regression therapy. You don't need to relive moments in order to change the thoughts in the deep mind. That's what we have magic for. That's one of the best uses of a magical system, is to unearth and reorient deep-seated thought forms. But it's very challenging to unearth and reorient deep-seated thought forms if you're not clear that they even exist in the first place. Beliefs are indicators of what those thought forms are. What we have faith in reflects to us what those thought forms are. Nothing ever works for me. That's a belief. Or when something bad happens, oh, I knew it. That's a belief. It wasn't precognition, it was a belief. Well, of course this happened. Doesn't this always happen to me? There's a belief. That's where your faith is. It's not that you're consciously deciding to have your faith in what you don't want. Your faith is reflecting back to you the reality that there is a thought form in there. And until you change that idea, until you reorient that thought form, you get to look forward to more and more of that. Beliefs are also shaped and formed by societal teachings, religious dogma, upbringings, yes. But most of those serve to reinforce the ideas that the child developed during those first 15, 20 minutes of being here. They've made decisions. This is an unsafe world. This is a loud world. This is a scary world. I can't trust people. I can't trust my own breath. It hurts to breathe. Like I said, they're preverbal. They don't have language, but that doesn't mean they aren't powerful thoughts. And when they take those thoughts and regurgitate them again and again, they churn out onto the screen of space experiences and forms that reflect back what those beliefs are. And it works beautifully. The way that the Hermetic law of mentalism works is perfect. What we project onto the screen of space is reflected back to us in our experience. Always. 2, 3, 4 people can be in the same room experiencing the same thing and have a completely different experience of what's happening in the so-called objective world. And that's based on the fact that their thought forms are projecting onto that circumstance something different than the other people in the room. It's important, once you understand this, to recognize that you're not powerless. We do create our circumstances through thoughts and through beliefs. We do. And we do this automatically. And this is not something to feel bad about or to feel afraid about. It's absolutely good news to know the metaphysics of how life works, because then we can start to question our beliefs. There's certain people that you'll meet and immediately you'll have a disliking for them. And most people, especially once they've started studying things like magic and psychic development, things like that, their ego will say, oh, that's because you're so psychic and they're toxic. That could be true. That could be true. I'm not saying that's not true. But it could also be true that that person reminds you of somebody that you don't remember, who was mean to you or said something bad to you. And so you're projecting onto them something from your own past. When you start looking at that and you recognize that, rather than immediately saying, oh, I'm so psychic, this person's probably toxic, you could instead use that experience where you have an immediate disliking of somebody as a catalyst for questioning your beliefs. You can ask your deep mind to show you. Deep mind, show me what the belief is that's causing this to happen so that I can change it. It may not happen in that moment. You might have a dream about it later. You might just be taking a walk and all of a sudden something flashes across your mind and it makes more sense why you had an immediate disliking to that person. You may never actually remember the circumstances that caused the immediate disliking for that person, but the belief itself can come up to your conscious mind so that you can make a new choice. You can make a brand new choice about that. When you've made that new choice and you've created a new thought form or upgraded an old one, you've saved yourself so many unnecessary painful experiences where you immediately have a disliking of somebody based on something that they reminded you of, which is not currently happening. So when you release that thought form, there are all these people now that can come into your life that have a better shot at being your friend than they did before. And again, we're not saying that sometimes you don't have an immediate disliking for somebody because that's your own psychic awareness giving you protection. But it's good to know, and it's worth questioning. Whenever something happens, let's say in finances, you get overdrawn in your account. Oh, I always get overdrawn in my account. Okay. Instead of that, ask yourself, what is the belief that this is representing? What does this represent to me? If this does recur, it's not because I'm bad. It's not even because I'm bad with money. It's because there's a belief that is being projected onto the screen of space and reflected back to me. So if I ask myself, what is this? You ask your deep mind, please show me what the belief is so I can change it. It'll show it to you because that's how it is. That's how the deep mind works. It's your servant. And it may not happen right then. It may happen later. But perhaps you come to the understanding that you have this belief that money is going to be bad for you. Money equals pain, or you associate wealth and financial stability with something or someone that was scary to you or that caused pain to you. And you didn't know that because you'd buried it so long ago. You didn't know that. You were 2 when you developed that belief system for yourself. But you can reorient that belief. And that's where your spellcasting operations are at their most effective, is creating a thought form to replace the thought form causing the problems for you. When we do banishing magic, we are banishing negative circumstances, but if we're smart, we're banishing the belief system that caused those negative circumstances. You don't want to just banish the circumstance without banishing the belief, because then it's just whack-a-mole. You're going to be banishing this circumstance and that circumstance, and your banishing is going to keep you very busy because the belief never got tackled. The thought form is what's important. What we habitually think is what we have faith in. What we habitually think is what we have faith in. You cannot be faithless. It's impossible to have consciousness and be faithless. Faith is an aspect of being conscious. You have faith in something. And where we orient and direct that faith determines the results in our lives. But we don't know what we have faith in most of the time because it's kept under wraps. It's deep in our habitual thinking. This is why sometimes magic will fail us. We are working on circumstances without working on the beliefs that are the cause of the circumstances. When we have fear and we have doubt and disbelief in our magic, those are symptoms of the beliefs themselves that need to be handled, that need to be uprooted and turned around, transformed. And sometimes it's as simple as reorienting how you approach spellcasting. Instead of saying, I need to do a spell for paying my rent this month, you can say, yeah, of course we need to do that, but I want to cast a spell about the belief system that's causing me not to have enough money to pay my rent, because that way I don't have to do another spell to pay my rent. It's just a one and done. Once I take care of that thought form, once I take care of that belief system, I don't have to revisit it again. You cast one spell and you change that thought form, or you dissolve that thought form and install a new one so that you don't have to keep casting spells. If you have recurring problems again and again and again and again, wouldn't you rather have recurring successes again and again and again and again? It works the same way. It works the same way. Thought forms work the same way, whether it's thought forms based on what you don't want versus based on what you do want. There's no need to recast if you really get the thought form handled. But we have to understand that most of us don't have positive thought forms about this world, at least not yet. We came in expecting the worst based on that first experience. It set the tone for our entire life. We need to heal that. That's the beauty of the process of forgiveness. We can forgive the world. We can forgive the OBGYN. We can forgive our mothers. Not that our mothers were at fault, but you can see why a child might have a resentment. Why did you let me come out of that womb into this cold, horrible world? The child may have a resentment against the mother because it blames the mother for the pain that they experienced. You could even go back with a paper and pencil and just ask, who do I need to forgive from those first 15 minutes of my life? And just make it up. Just write it down. Just stream of consciousness. Write it down. I have to forgive the doctor. I have to forgive my father. I have to forgive my mother. I have to forgive God. I have to forgive the hospital. I have to forgive the medical profession. If you just go through and do that, just I forgive each one of these people, it releases the charge. And then you can install a new thought form. Imagine a new thought form based on this is a beautiful world. This world always brings me everything I want. This world brings me nothing but pleasure and beauty. Why can't those be on the screen of space? It's all an illusion anyway, right? So why not have the illusion be oriented toward what you want? But notice what the ego does with that. That's impossible. The reason why the world is horrible is because we believe the world is horrible. Everybody does. Everybody had a bad birth. Everybody's first impression of this world was awful. That's what you're dealing with. You can rise above that by changing your perspective and having new belief systems, and other people will be inspired by you. The world is my friend. Money is my friend. People are my friends. Nature is my friend. Age is my friend. Time is my friend. All of those things that we think are so scary and bad. When we've changed the thoughts about them, we change what we get. You want to talk about high magic. High magic can be the highest form of your interaction with the world, and that your circumstances have a higher function than they used to have. When you start your spellcasting work for the next moon phase, whatever you're going for, see if you can go a little deeper. Rather than only what about the world do I want to change, but what are the beliefs that caused the occurrence in the first place? And let's change those. And you can do it. It just takes practice and it takes persistence. You're going to be here anyway, so you may as well use the time you're here to heal your experience with here. The whole idea of reincarnation is you don't have to come back when you don't have any unfinished business here. You've forgiven everybody. You've created thought forms about the world that are all beautiful, and there's no more resentment, no unfinished business that you have to complete. If you don't feel like being reincarnated again, or you feel like, quote, ascending, that's how you do it. You do it pragmatically, based on the circumstances in your life and uncovering the hidden beliefs that are causing those circumstances and eliminating them and changing them. And there's all kinds of techniques that we have for creating and changing thought forms. You just can go through my website. You can go through my YouTube channel. There are a plethora of different techniques that you can use. So find the ones you like and approach your life that way and make this life count. Thank you so much for spending some time with me today. I so appreciate you. Until next time, blessed be.